This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com with links to my social media account, my column at the Colorado Springs Independent, my podcast at Studio 809 Podcast, my photography website, contact information, anything you want is all at hikingbob.com. And today, rejoining me after some time off and doing some stuff, we've both been out of town and everything, is Wild Westendorf.
Hey, everyone. It's great to be back.
And Kevin, good to have you back. How can people find you?
So you can go on my website, which is wildwestendorf.com, and you can search for Wild Westendorf on Facebook and Instagram.
Great. And what we're going to talk about here in a minute is your adventure.
Oh, yeah.
In California. It sounded like it was a lot of fun. And I guess adventure, well, let's just talk about it. You climbed with a couple of friends Mount Whitney in California, which is a 14,000-foot peak in California.
Yep.
We thought we had ownership of all the 14,000-foot peaks here in Colorado, but
I thought so too.
But damn it, we don't. We had to share some with California and a couple other states. But nonetheless, you climbed up. And when I say adventure in that, you know, it's. I'll have you tell the story, but everything went well.
Oh, it was perfect timing of days, of weather, all that stuff. I mean, it was great.
So it's not like an adventure because things went wrong. Everything went great. It was just an adventure because she climbed another 14er. So Mount Whitney, it's the highest peak in California. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
So it's a 14,000, how many feet?
It's 14,505 feet.
So it's pretty tall. I mean, it's 400 feet taller than Pikes Peak. It probably puts it on level with Mount Elbert.
It's 66 feet higher than Elbert.
So it's even bigger than our tallest peak here in Colorado. So it's not a 14er. They're all hard, but it's not like one of these that's 14,002 feet.
Yeah.
It's 14,000 and a whole lot more feet.
Yeah, it's the highest mountain in the lower 48 states plus Hawaii.
Okay, so it's a pretty good sized peak. So let's talk about it. Let's start all the way back. You and your friends decide you were going to do this.
Yep.
You just can't show up there and hike it, though. There's a process. Tell us about that process.
So you have to get a permit, but the permit is only issued through a lottery, because it's a few hours away from major cities like Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and I guess for a while there, just the crowds on the mountain were just getting huge because it's the highest one in the lower 48 states. It's a popular mountain because of that, and so you apply for a permit. And I think it's $15 a person, and you just have to hope you get it. And we actually lucked out. It was our first time applying, and only 30% of the people who apply win a permit.
Let me ask you something real quick about the permit. So it's $15 a person, but is that like you submit one permit with three different names, or all three of you applying for your own separate permits?
All three of us applied for one permit each.
Okay.
On the same application.
So was there a chance that one of you would get a permit and the other two wouldn't, or it was all or nothing on that?
It was all or nothing.
Okay. I was worried that one of you would get it, two others wouldn't, and you're I'm not going up there by myself.
And you pick a date range. So we picked the last week of June. And then you just have to keep your fingers crossed that you win one of those days. And you can either apply for an overnight pass, which is what we did, or you can apply for a day use pass. And we wanted to do the overnight one so that we could take our time and enjoy the mountain and the scenery. Because a few of my friends have done the day use pass, and you have to start at 2 o'clock in the morning. The majority of your hike is at nighttime. And you're just trying to pack in like 22, 23 miles in one day.
So in terms of how long this trail is, it's on par with hiking up Pikes Peak.
Yes.
So it's about 13-ish miles each way.
Yeah.
So it's a long hike. It's not a day use pass can be done, but boy, that does not sound like a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
Especially coming downhill. People think coming downhill is easy. 13 miles of downhill will destroy your knees and your hips.
Oh, yeah.
in a heartbeat. So you did an overnight pass. And you got it, which is great. Your chances, like you said, you only had a 30% chance of getting it, so you did get it. That's awesome. Are there like last minute passes that people can get? They show up the night before.
Yep. Which there's almost always a few available each day because a lot of people apply and at the last minute realize they can't do the trip or stuff comes up. But that's also a huge risk because you're driving hours away from a major city like LA or Vegas, and you just have to keep your fingers crossed that you might get one, but you might not.
And it's even worse if you're coming in from somewhere else, like here, where it's, I don't know, what's it, a 14-hour, 15-hour drive from here to there? It's a long... I wouldn't want to drive 14, 50 hours until, sorry, we'll have one next week for you.
I would be so bummed.
I'm not going to be here next week. It's not going to help you. What town where'd you stage? I mean, I imagine you got there and probably spent a night someplace before you started up. So
so the only town that's nearby is called Lone Pine.
Okay.
And it's a very, very tiny town. They have a restaurant there that serves burgers, and their sign says best burger in town, and it's like, well, you guys are the only ones who make them, so
they're not lying.
Yeah.
it could be the worst burger you had, but it's probably the best one in that town.
Yeah.
We make ours out of rancid meat, but it's the best one in town.
Yep.
Do not write me. I'm not saying they serve I'm just saying. It's all a matter of, this is what we call advertising and how you spin things. So you get there the night before?
Yep.
Spend the night there? Is it? I mean, lodging, anything decent, or did you camp?
We stayed at a hostel. I did break up the drive there by staying a night in Vegas.
Okay.
And I learned that a cheap motel in a mountain town in Colorado is fine. Like, I've always had a great time with that. A cheap motel in Vegas is not fine. It is. That was a lesson learned.
Yeah.
Like my motel door kind of locked, it kind of closed. So,
was there still crime scene tape on front of it?
Yeah. But
was there still the luminol stains?
Because I just thought, hey, it's on the strip, it'll be fine. No. Make sure you read reviews and all that stuff too, which I didn't do, but.
It's like the place I stayed when I went to Bryce Canyon, and we couldn't stay. There was this place down the road. It was not a good idea. Ooh. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah.
Like are those things on the floor supposed to be moving with their legs? What in the heck is that? So you spent the night.
And then the next day I
had the best burger in town, which may or may not have been the best burger ever. But
but to get to Lone Pine, you had to drive through Death Valley. So I wanted to make sure I stopped at Badwater Basin and Death Valley because that's the lowest point in the 48 states. So I wanted to claim that in the span of a couple of days, I was at the lowest point and the highest point.
That's cool.
So that was also the first time I experienced temperatures of 120 degrees. And now I understood how people can get dehydrated and pass out, get sick, die in the desert, but it wasn't until I felt those temps. Because even if it's hot here, if you get like a little bit of a breeze, it's like, okay, it feels nice. There, the breeze was like burning you. It was so hot. It was awful. It was miserable.
It's probably like my air fryer. It's a breeze, but it's a hot breeze. It's probably, I imagine it's like, I've talked about this before when I hike in the desert. It feels hot. It 85 there feels different than 85 here. Yeah. Because there's nothing on the ground except bare ground, so it all just reflects back in your face. I'm guessing that's what Death Valley is like. Oh, it's just glaring.
So, yeah.
So it's hitting you from the top and from below, and
and there's no shade anywhere. And that was also the first time I realized like why you should turn your AC off in your car when you're going over a pass at those temps, because my car, that was the hardest I've ever pushed a car that I've ever owned, and it kind of decided on its own to turn off the AC. It's like I'm sure there's software for the engine to help deal with the really, really high temps. And it's like I turned that off, and so my friend and I were just in the car sweating while we're driving over this pass, and then my car just decided like it's not going to go faster than 45 and stuff. So it's just like it was a little scary because I did not want to get stranded because there's no service, there's nothing for miles and miles and miles and stuff. But yeah.
And they've had a couple of deaths there this year from people out there against everybody's best advice. People out there in hiking and stuff in that unbelievable heat, and that's not a good thing. I couldn't imagine. I would guess that my Jeep with my trailer would just not make it up over those.
Yeah,
just wouldn't do it. I would have to do it in like the winter or something. It wouldn't make it over that.
Because when I went to Death Valley the first time, it was in November of 2020. So the highs were like 85, so it's still hot, but it's much, much better.
Yeah, not killing your car.
120, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and your car does those things to keep you from like just destroying the engine and the transmission and everything else and just...
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Now it's 130 degrees, so the best thing for you to do is turn off your air conditioning. You're going, are you out of your mind? I'm not going to open the windows. It's just more hot air. Yeah, I bet that's just brutal. So you get up there.
Yep.
Spend the night. So how early did you start when you started your hike up there?
We actually allowed ourselves to sleep in a bit because we knew we weren't going to hit the summit on the first day. We were going to go up to what's called Trail Camp Lake to set up camp, and then we was just relax and chill. So we hiked about 10 miles up. I'd say 9.5 miles up. So we knew we'd have plenty of time in daylight. We would get to camp early enough to avoid any afternoon storms. So I think we started to hike at like 8 in the morning. So it's nice to sleep in a little bit, especially after all that driving too.
Right.
And we actually lucked out. The timing was perfect in terms of weather because a few days before our hike, a foot of snow was dropped on the mountain.
Ouch.
And I'm a part of this Facebook group that's all about Mount Whitney. And a day or two before the snow came, they were getting like 80 miles an hour wind the entire hike up there, which is at that point it's not fun. I mean, it's like you could be in a beautiful area. When the winds are consistently that high, it's not fun.
It's actually dangerous.
Yeah. Plus, they were getting the monsoon weather and stuff like that every day. But when we were up there, it was completely dry. The weather was great. It got a little cold at night, obviously, which it makes sense because we camped at about 12,000 feet, but it was fine.
Well, it's going to be, yeah. So, I'm sorry, was the wind before or after the snow?
Before the snow, so
Okay.
so I'm assuming it may have been a part of the storm system that rolled through.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what is the trail? I mean, we know the bar trail here up Pikes Peak. We're going to draw some analogies between the two.
Yeah.
Is it like the bar trail where it's just straight up the hill with the exception of the switchbacks in the first 3 miles here? Or is it more meander around the mountain?
I was told, I lost track of it, but I was told there's officially 99 switchbacks.
Ugh.
So it is a relentless uphill. There's about a mile or so where it kind of chills out a bit, but essentially the entire way you're going uphill, up switchbacks, and it got old really fast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's what did we say it was, about 12 miles each way?
Yeah.
Okay. So you camped out on the way up.
Yep.
And was that at that camp? I'm sorry, you may have said and I missed it. Was that campground at tree line or below tree line? Or
It's above tree line.
so
yeah.
you're exposed. You did say it was around 12,000 feet. So you're exposed up there. How was that, other than being chilly because you're at 12,000 feet?
It was fine, actually. We found a few established campsites that other hikers have put up like rock walls around it to kind of protect from wind.
Oh, that's cool.
But we didn't really get any wind, so it was fine regardless. And we got up at 5 in the morning to go up to the summit. Now, the switchbacks mostly end once you get up to this ridge, and then you go on the backside of the mountain, on the west slope of the mountain.
So it does kind of wrap around a little
Yeah.
bit. Okay.
Because the only way to get up to the mountain on the east slope is the rock climb it. So you kind of have to go up around Mount Muir and a few other peaks. Once you get up to that ridge, the last 1.5 miles or 2 miles, it's fairly meandering. It's fairly flat, which was really nice to experience that after the previous days just being nothing but switchbacks. And then we reached the summit. I want to say we reached the summit around 9 in the morning. And we hung out for a long time. We took like all the photos, all the selfies, all the videos, and we got to check out what used to be a weather research station up there. And it's still it held up really, really well, actually. Like it's still a good shelter in place that other hikers have put stuff inside the rooms in case if you do get stuck up there.
So the building's whole. It's got a roof on it and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So
And I'm sorry, it's made out of rock?
Yep.
Okay.
They used a lot of rocks found in the area because it's obviously a very rocky summit. But it was built in, I want to say, the 1920s. And they did bring up a lot of the metal for the roofing and such up there. So I can't imagine trying to haul all of that up there.
A lot of
it must
mules.
have been a workout.
Yeah, probably a mule train up there or something.
Oh, yeah.
The days before helicopters can do it for you. Well, some of those buildings, I mean, the old Weather Research Station on Pikes Peak held up for many years. It held up for a long time, and there's still remnants of the old building up there. Even when they built the new Summit House, they left some of that up there. So some of that stuff, they didn't have all the modern engineering tools that we've got now, but they knew how to build stuff that was going to last pretty well. I mean, you still run into old cabins when you're out hiking, in some of the mountains and stuff around here. You run into old cabins and stuff like that. So they knew how to build it. How big is the summit? Pikes Peak, we'll talk about Pikes Peak. It's got a summit, what's it, maybe an acre or two? I
would say it's close to the same size as the Pikes Peak. It's a very wide and large open summit. Because most 14ers I've been on, the summit is very, very small. You get a crowd of like 10 hikers up there, and it can feel packed up there. Mm-hmm. This was a lot like Pikes Peak, where it's very wide and open.
Okay. So you got up there. So what time did you leave that second morning to get up there?
We got up at 5, but I don't think we started till 6.
Okay, so you're up there in 3 hours. You got there about 9. On the way down, did you spend the night, or you just go all the way down?
We went all the way back down.
What'd that feel like by the time we got done?
It wasn't too bad, and I think it's because we got to sleep the night before, so we were able to rest up a little bit.
That makes sense. I'd be popping a leaf like it was
like
it was Skittles or something. But give me a Pez dispenser full of a leaf.
Yeah. But we did run into Inyo County Search and Rescue. But thankfully, they were not up there for a mission. It was just outreach, and it was to ask a bunch of hikers like how do we do our research? What websites do we use if we brought actual maps and didn't just rely on maps and a GPS? They thanked us for not relying completely on alltrails.com.
Thank God. I'm telling you, the more land managers I talk to, the more they hate AllTrails. But that's good to hear. That's actually a pretty interesting. So they're doing like a survey and trying to talk to people about that. Did they offer you any tips? Did they think you guys are pretty well prepared? What did they have to say about you being up there?
They thanked us for our time and for the stuff we had told them. Like I said, they were very, very glad that we had actual maps and didn't completely rely on our phones or a GPS device. They said like it's great to use those, but it's always best to learn how to read a map and to
always have a backup.
Yep, exactly, and how to use the compass and stuff like that too, because it's very, very easy to pinpoint exactly where you are if you know how to read a map and a compass the right way.
And having a good sense of direction and knowing where you're going and having planned that out all in advance. So let's take a step back. What did you do to plan for this hike, to know how long it was and maybe you should camp on the way up? And how did you plan for all that?
Well, at the end of the day, it's still a 14er, and so I already have a bunch of experience with those because I've climbed quite a few here, and there's been a few that I've climbed a couple times each, and like I've been up on Pikes Peak 3 times now. I've been up on Mount Albert twice. So I knew I wasn't in for any surprises. Yeah.
Just an overachiever. Let's just face it.
Exactly. And
that's okay.
And because it's a very similar size of a hike as Pikes Peak, I kind of knew what to expect. And because of that, I wasn't really thrown off guard at any point. I knew in advance about all the switchbacks. And the best thing is just 14ers.com to read trip reports, and like I mentioned earlier, there's a group on Facebook I joined where everyone was giving their notes on their experiences and thoughts and all that such too. So it really helped me know exactly what to look for. Great.
So you went out there. I mean, and I would expect nothing less from you, that you would go out there, be pretty well prepared and pretty, equipped and everything. Your friends that went with you, they done 14ers before?
Oh, yeah.
So this is nothing new for them either. So they're on the same page as you are.
Yeah.
With being experienced and knowing what they're doing. Did you see anybody else on the trail?
Oh, yeah. We saw plenty of people, but I think because of the permit system, it never felt like there was a crowd on the mountain, which was great, because I was a little worried about that, because I'm definitely not the type to, like, this mountain is mine, and it should be my experience and such.
It wasn't like Mount Bierstadt in July with a conga line of people going up there.
Exactly. I was worried it'd be like that, but it was not. Like, it was fine.
Great. At the campground you were at, the camp, what's it called?
It's a Trail Camp Lake.
Trail Camp Lake. Was that actually a lake there?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there anybody else camping that night? Did anybody do the same thing you did, camp the night before, then all go up the same, go up next morning?
Say in our immediate area, because there's other campsites that are lower down the mountain. This campsite is the last one on the trail before the summit, and you can camp at any of them. You don't have to get a permit for a specific site.
You've got the permit to go up there already, so that covers you for camping. And
first campsite you approach on the trail is one of the most stunningly beautiful spots I've ever seen on a campsite. And I think it's just called Outpost Camp. But there's this giant waterfall next to it.
Oh.
It's like in this wooded, forested area. It's just beautiful.
How many miles up is that?
That's probably only 3 or 4 miles up.
Okay.
So if you're planning on staying for a couple days and stuff like that.
For people doing the Monday through Friday hike.
Yeah.
Be what I would have to do. Monday. I'll start on Monday. I'll be up there by Friday.
Yeah. But at trail camp, though, it's above tree line, so it's very, very exposed, but it's still a gorgeous place. And you have this amazing view of Mount Whitney plus the other peaks, because when you look at Mount Whitney from the east slope, it looks very jagged and stuff, and it's almost like it looked like it'd be impossible to get up there until you hike up a bit more, and then you see where the trail goes onto the backside, which the backside of Mount Whitney is actually in Sequoia National Park.
Really?
Had no idea until we got up there, and there's a sign for it. We're like, oh, cool, okay.
It is some of that, it's in the Forest Service. The Forest Service has the part that's not in the national park. Is any of that a designated wilderness area, or is it just part of the national forest?
Yes, I think it's just Inyo County Wilderness Area.
Okay.
I think it's just called that, yeah.
Okay, so there's some prohibitions. Nobody's going to bring a motorized vehicle or even a bicycle up there. There's no use of chainsaws or any of those things that apply in wilderness areas or wilderness study areas. They kind of use that as a way to get around to get around that too. Yeah, any wildlife? Do you see any, especially up at the high altitude? Do you see any mountain goats or bighorn or anything?
Just a couple of marmots, and that's it.
Oh.
And the squirrels and stuff like that. In the lower part of the trail, but
no bears marauding through your campground or anything.
I was bummed. Yeah.
No elk or no moose, or I don't even know what they have out there. I imagine elk and moose and everything, and we have here. Yeah, because 14,000-foot
at the trailhead, there were warnings to stay away from wildlife, and they showed like bears and elk and moose and stuff. But yeah, we didn't see any of that up there.
Huh. Cool. So how was the hike down? So you did everything the next day. So you get up at 5, you get there at 9. Well, you leave at 6, but you get up at 5, leave at 6, get up there at 9, hang around for a little bit. How long did it take you to get back down?
I want to say we didn't get back to our cars because we came down to our campsite and packed everything up because we didn't want to bring our completely full backpacks up to the summit.
That makes sense. You're coming back by there.
Yeah, and so the John Muir Trail connects to the Mount Whitney Trail, and what a lot of people were doing who were backpacking the John Muir Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail would leave their backpacks at the intersection of the John Muir Trail and Mount Whitney, and they just do a quick jog up and say, hey, I did it, and come back down, which I've always thought that stuff is cool, that we kind of just have this sense of trust for a lot of outdoors folks. Plus, I don't think anyone's going to, while they have a 40-pound backpack, they're going to steal another backpack it's 40 pounds. So.
The people who tend to do these kind of things, like people who do through hikes, up the Pacific Crest or the ADT or any of those things, they are going to be the same thing. They're all on the same page. You're all working hard to get up there.
Yeah.
And your bottom feeding criminals are not going to work that hard to go steal something.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. I mean, it's good that there's still this community and probably everybody looking out for each other. Like, yeah, pile your stuff there. It's going to be fine. Nobody's going to rip. I imagine things occasionally happen, but for the most part,
Oh yeah.
if you're that dedicated to going up there, you have probably, my guess, going to be relied on other people to help you, or you've helped other people, so you're not going to be too keen on ripping anybody off or anything stupid like that. Yeah.
And so yeah, we packed everything up and went back down. I think we got back to our cars at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we had enough time to go chill out at Lone Pine, and to get food and relax. And
you have another one of the world's best burger in Lone Pine.
Yeah. And
place needs a McDonald's.
Oh yeah, right. we got pizza and it was delicious. Like, after a couple days, it's just trail food. It was so nice to get like a hot, carb heavy like meal.
Okay.
Oh,
you earned it.
Yeah. and yeah, so the next day we all left and we met up again in Vegas to hang out a little bit, and then the day after they stayed a few more days in Vegas, but the next day I came back and I drove home.
Hopefully not in the same sketchy hotel or anything.
Oh, no.
You would think that those, a cheap motel in a small town would probably be, but yeah, some of those places in big cities can be very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about how good the bed is, although that's questionable too. Just uncomfortable vibe.
Oh, I was just praying that I didn't have bed bugs or anything. Oh.
Why do I have tiny livestock moving around on my arm? That would be a bad thing. So it sounded like a lot of fun. And the pictures I saw were fantastic. You when you got back down, you posted a lot of stuff on your social media. It looked like a fantastic trip. Your weather was great.
Oh, yeah.
Photos were awesome. How many miles total? So we're talking 23-ish miles?
It's 22, but we added a mile to it to take a detour to go off to Lone Pine Lake.
Okay.
Because it was like a few miles up, and it's just a great spot to stop and rest.
Cool. And so I know when you do like Pikes Peak, it's like, 7,000, 8,000 feet of elevation gain. What is it there? Where are you starting at?
It's about the same.
It's about the same.
Yeah, because I think it was close to 7,000 feet.
Okay. So there's a lot of similarities that can be drawn between Mount Whitney and Pikes Peak. Mount Whitney being higher, but other than that, the distance, the elevation gain, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Between it. So if we're going to rename Pikes Peak, we should rename it the Mount Whitney Training Grounds.
Yeah. I think
I had a long story I was getting to, and that was
I don't like to compare mountains because they're all great in their own ways.
Sure.
But I will say the Mount Whitney Trail is prettier than a bar trail in terms of the different landscapes you go through, and plus you pass by a few gorgeous lakes, and you don't really find that on the Pikes Peak on the bar trail. So there's stuff like that different, but still like it's a beautiful hike though.
It sounded like you had fun.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
But, so what's the next one you're doing?
I don't know yet. I thought about that the entire drive home, and there's just so much to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. I think it was great that you had the chance to do it. I think it was lucky that you got your permits on the first shot. You think maybe June was still kind of early, and that's why you were able to get them a little easier?
Maybe, but I did feel bad when I posted about it on Facebook because my friend did respond saying, like, man, I've been applying for the last 6 years and I still have not won one. And I was like, ooh, I'm sorry, dude.
Ooh, ouch. Yeah, but that's the way it happened. I know when I did, and this is not nearly the same feat, but when I did the wave in northern Arizona and coming through Utah, I was up there with a friend of mine. Fortunately, he'd done the wave before, but we were there the night before at the BLM or U.S. Forest Service ranger station for the last ones. I got it. He didn't.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's just how it happened.
It's the way it works, yeah.
I would have felt terrible if he'd never been there before, but since he just went somewhere else for the day while I was doing the wave. But, it's good that you were able to get one in advance. And, of course, as we've talked about, this thing about whole advanced reservations is becoming more and more the norm.
Yeah.
So we were getting a glimpse from you about how that system works. So just a lottery. You just fill out an application, send in a fee, and then some computer program somewhere spits out the winners?
Yep. Applied about a month before the results were given out, and that was a long month. Just like, okay, are we gonna get this or not? Because it's one thing if you know you're going and you plan for that, but it's another thing where you spend a month not knowing if you're going or not. So.
Right. How many months out did you have to go? I mean, 6 months, 5 months, a month?
We applied in March. The results were given out in April, and our hike was at the last week of June.
So you're talking 3 months ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually not bad. Some places are much longer. I think Grand Canyon is over a year now in advance. You have to, if you're on a hike down to Phantom Ranch or something, it's a much longer period to be able to do that. I think it's great. I'm glad you had a good time. I'm glad Mother Nature cooperated. So you had no bad weather. You got there, the snow had gone, the winds had died down.
Oh, you had it was perfect
robin egg
weather.
Blue skies and and rainbows and unicorns and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
You missed the unicorns, didn't you?
Yep.
I heard they were up there. And the marmots.
Yeah. 'Cause they're still extremely adorable.
Yeah.
Even if they're really annoying.
Yeah, and destructive little SOBs.
Yeah.
Like they didn't drive up there. They chew on your wires and stuff in your cars, and they're they're kind of a nightmare.
About a week or two before we went up there, someone's car got destroyed at the trailhead by a bear because they left food in their car.
Don't do that.
And so I triple checked everything in my car. I've got to make sure, but still a part of me was still worried that I would finish the hike and come to my car getting destroyed.
So they didn't smell the raw meat I put in your trunk?
Damn it.
So tell me about this. Talk about food. What did you bring? Did you bring like dehydrated meals you just add water to, or what did you bring for food for when you were? I mean, obviously you had, you camped out the night before, so you had a meal. The next day for breakfast you had a meal. You had to eat some meals. What kind of stuff did you bring for your meals?
I had one dehydrated meal. It's a spaghetti and meatballs, which is not as good as what you'll find at the Olive Garden, but
it sounds as good as it's as good as it sounds.
Yeah,
dehydrated spaghetti and meatballs.
And then what I've always found to be great smaller meals to have are just the foil packets of tuna. And then now they come in all kinds of flavors and stuff like that now. So you don't have to bring extra sauce and like salt and pepper and stuff. So I'd like to bring those plus little tortillas that are the street taco size, because those just make great little meals. And just a ton of like nuts and snacks and a little bit of candy too.
Cool.
To kind of hit that sweet tooth.
Yeah, I like those dehydrated meals because they're sealed up. They're good forever. The only thing left after nuclear holocaust is going to be the cockroaches and Twinkies. Yeah. and they don't take a lot of water, just
it's just a little bit,
quarter of a cup if it's even that much water, and they taste pretty good. I don't know. I would probably try to get somebody to take the spaghetti and meatballs from me in exchange for beef stroganoff or something. But they're a great meal. They're lightweight. I always, question the wisdom of people who carry a lot of food and the stuff it takes to prep that.
Yeah.
You can do without the fine dining for a couple of days while you're out on this long, arduous hike, and just bring something dehydrated that doesn't take a lot. What about water? Were you able to replenish water? Did you have any water filtering system? Did you carry enough water? How much water did you carry?
So I actually think I carried too much water, where I really could have brought a couple liters and been fine with that, and because I also had a water filter, and there's enough water on the trail too, but it was the thing where it's my first time on this trail, so I wanted to be safe instead of sorry.
Right.
But if I were to go up there next time, I would bring half the water that I brought, because there's so much water everywhere except for the last 2 miles.
And you got water 2 miles ago.
Yeah.
And I imagine those lakes being up there at altitude are probably just like crystal clear and just beautiful.
Amazing, yeah.
So a little water filtration system and you're good to go.
Yep.
And there was plenty of that along the trail, so not just at different places you can replenish your water supply.
The trail meets the creek many, many times. There's multiple creeks, and you pass by, I won't say 3 lakes on the way up too. So in case if you can't find a spot at the creek, which I can't imagine why you wouldn't, there's 3 lakes to go to also.
Cool. Sounds like a great time.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Whatever your next one is, don't invite me. But tell me all about it when you get back. It sounds like it was a blast, and I'm really glad you had the opportunity to go. The lottery worked in your favor. The weather worked in your favor. Nobody got hurt. Everybody, other than probably being sore as all get out when you got back. Of course, you're young. You don't get sore for doing little things like that. It sounds great. Cool. I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. I guess are you planning for next summer yet, or? I'm
planning for something maybe late summer or fall this year. And then, I'm just going to try and figure out what I want to do next year.
Well, while you were doing that, I was doing something not nearly as exciting. But I went back to New Jersey, where I grew up, for my high school reunion. Do not ask me how many years. We're measuring things in decades now. And while I was there was, I lived in a very, very rural part of New Jersey. So I didn't live, like, if what you know of New Jersey is what you see in the beginning of The Sopranos, that is not where I lived. I lived in a very rural area, very heavily wooded, sandy soil, near the ocean, near rivers, near a lot of different things like that. And I went back and I had some time. I stayed long. I stayed for about a week. So I would have some stuff, and I got there before and stayed after the reunion. And there was a trail there called the Batona Trail, which is about 20 minutes from where I live, where I used to live. And it's about a 50-ish mile trail.
Oh, wow.
It was started in 1960-something when it was created. And Batona, if you're wondering what that means, it's back to nature.
Oh,
Batona, so back to nature.
I like that.
A nice trail. So here's what happens. I'm going to, I knew I didn't have time to do all of it because I had other things to do, people to see and stuff to do, and spending time with my mom, which was wonderful. We had a great time. But I knew I wanted to do part of it. Well, literally days before I go down there, part of that trail and that forest that trail goes through catches fire. Thousands and thousands and thousands of acres go up in flames. Like, you got to be kidding me. And where I was starting at is a place that's about, I would say, roughly halfway on this trail. The trail is an out and back. Well, it's not a loop, so it just kind of goes from point A to point B. You can start at either direction.
Okay.
There's an old state. There's a state park there that has an old village, a place called Batstow, and it actually predates the Revolution. It goes back to the early mid 1700s.
Oh wow, that's
so
impressive.
It predates the Revolution. It's on a river. It used to be a place where riverboats would stop and supplies would be. It was transportation, and there's a mill there that was water powered that ground grain and stuff like that. There's an old mansion there. There's a lot of old buildings. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and I love taking pictures there. And so this trail kind of cuts right around it. You actually can get on the trail from the state park. Side note, too, is New Jersey has waived all entry fees to their state parks for the year.
Oh, that's cool.
So all their state parks are free this year, which I thought was pretty cool. They actually had enough money. So we don't need it.
Nice.
And trust me, coming from New Jersey, nothing is ever free from the government there. So it actually was kind of a shock. So I go to the state park, and the way it was everything north and west of the state park had burned. You could smell it. You could still see wisp of smoke, but they had the fire out by the time I got there. They have a great state forest fire service that really does a phenomenal job, but they're also fighting fire mostly on flat land. They can drive into the woods with these trucks they have with these big brush cages surrounding them. I have a picture of one. I should post it someplace, but it's pretty impressive. But I go to the visitor center and say, well, I wanted to hike the trail. Well, the gal goes, you can go the other way. You can go east from here. I had wanted to go west, and not for any reason, but it was actually a little more scenic there.
Oh, okay.
And she goes, but we just built this brand new trail. It's brand new. It connects to it, and it's not even on the maps yet.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, well, tell me more. So she brings out this, basically it's a satellite picture that they got off of Google where they drew the map on there where this trail went. She goes, you passed it on the way in. It's a few minutes walk, and then there's like almost an unmarked trailhead. So I ended up doing this like nice 7-ish mile loop that was east of there. So I took this trail to a campground that connected to the Batona Trail. Did the Batona Trail, came back into the corner of the state park, and came back around. Then the next day I did it with a friend of mine. We just went out and back on this new trail that was built, and that was a 4 or 5-ish mile hike, I think.
Nice.
And I forgot, besides being at sea level, so literally, well, there's a river there, literally 2 feet above sea level on this hike, how soft the ground is.
Oh.
I mean, I was walking. I did not bring my Oboz hiking boots that I typically wear here. I had a pair of Keen Targis, which are very lightweight, and hiked in those, and it was just so comfortable wearing lighter weight boots, and it wasn't like rocky soil or rocks on your feet or anything like that. It was just like it's like walking on a bed of feathers, And I think I saw a unicorn too while I was out there. Really, really was just a pleasant experience. The unpleasant part, humidity, bugs, flies, ticks. I don't know how many ticks I picked off of me, regardless of how much bug spray I used. And this is Lyme disease central out there. So I'm really like worried about the ticks and things like that. Be thankful you live here where the bug population is so much less than it is there. But what a nice hike, really nice trail construction, some really cool bridges they built, because this thing crossed a number of creek and rivulets and everything, because there's water everywhere there and everything is very lush. Really nice bridge construction they did, and it really was a nice trail. So it was a nice little loop I did there. I did a little bit of hiking. There's a wildlife refuge nearby.
Oh, okay.
Very close. My mom goes there a lot and hikes there because it's right on the bay, and you could look across, and there's Atlantic City and the casinos and a couple of the islands. So there's it's on the coast, and there's the islands that run up and down the coast. You could look across the bay at them. And I hiked that place as a kid.
Nice.
The refuge has been there for years, and hiked it as a kid. So there's some nice trails in there that go through some wooded areas, some meadows, lots of different wildflowers to see. Turtles. I forgot turtles. You don't even see turtles around here anymore. Little box turtles. They're diamond. People stop in the roads if they see a turtle crossing the road. Stop in the road to pick up the turtle and move it off the road, just so these turtles don't get hit by cars. That's how much people love. And there's a box turtle, which is kind of squarish shaped. Then there was another one that actually that lives in a wildlife refuge, that they'll stop in the middle of this dirt road that goes around the refuge, and they'll scratch a hole in there and lay their eggs right in the hole, right in the middle of the street. And the road there. Saw one of those and actually helped it along the way. Here's a tip: if you see a turtle, you take it in the direction it's going. So you don't turn around, put it to the nearest curb. You go if it's at the beginning of going, you can still take it all the way across. Saw some ospreys, saw some herons, saw some egrets. It's a whole different thing. It's cool to go back there.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the humidity, bugs, mosquitoes, flies, ticks, it would be wonderful. But it was so much different. It was a lot of fun to be back there. Besides seeing everybody and old friends and family and stuff like that, it was a lot of fun to go back there and hike in an entirely different environment that we are just absolutely not used to. I also felt like Superman. I was ripping around that 7-mile loop like I was doing like 3.5 miles an hour. I hardly felt it because I'm used to like having no oxygen, and here I'm at sea level, and it was great. The foliage is different. I posted a picture. I forget where I posted it. It may have been on Facebook, of the section of the trees that grow there. Tends to be a lot of oaks and maples and elms, and it was one day when it was kind of overcast. The day I was doing that hike, we had some clouds coming in and out, and there was this section there. We have a lot of underbrush there, a lot of scrub oak, and a lot of blueberries grow. I mean, just wild blueberries. The whole forest is just full of wild blueberries. So there was this like foliage, very green. I was about 2 feet tall, and then there were these tree trunks, straight tree trunks of this dark, I want to say dark maple. And it was just this, and it was very evenly lit. So just this picture of this green carpet. And then these straight up dark colored tree trunks. It was really a cool image. And I almost didn't take a picture. I said, I don't know if I'm going to see this again. And this is going to be hard to describe. So I took some pictures of it. It was pretty cool. I actually I had my camera in my pack, took the pack off, took the camera out instead of just shooting it with my cell phone. The other interesting thing about there is the odd names for places, because they go back to pre-Revolutionary War time. So a lot of Dutch, German. This trail I was on, the Batona Trail, starts in a little place called Tuckahoe. And a lot of Native American names. The high school I grew up with, Native American name, and it ends at a place called Ong's Hat, Ongs Hat. No idea what that refers to. And there's like, Martha's Bridge and this place. You look at these maps and they're just dots on a map. places don't exist anymore, but they're marks for where trails cross or roads go and stuff like that. These old Englishy sounding names for places.
Oh, that's cool.
That go, I mean, like I said, and to give you an idea of the history, the town I lived in celebrated its bicentennial several years before the country celebrated its bicentennial. Oh, wow. So to give you an idea of how old some of these little tiny communities in rural New Jersey are, that kind of gives you an idea of how far back some of these places go. So you got to relive a little bit of history. You got to see these old buildings that we have a lot of old buildings here, but here they're going to be 1800s.
Yeah.
There you're dealing with 100 years before that, the early 1700s. So it's kind of an interesting place, it's kind of an interesting place to see and to visit. I did make the comment to when we started having these reunions, we started having them when we were 5 years out and 10 years out. Now we're many, many more years out. You schedule these things in the summer because people had families and they were working, and, you had to schedule these things around, kids being off from school and stuff. And we're sitting there and we're talking to the one person who she's done a great job of organizing these for many years. I said, I think everybody's done with school and kids and stuff. And can we do this in the fall next time? and I think the response was, I don't know why we can't. I said, yeah, I'm tired of these bugs and the humidity and stuff like that, because it gets a lot nicer later in the year, just like here. It gets a lot nicer. So it was a lot of fun. We really had a good time. And it's fun to go hike in different. When I went to Hawaii, it was like hiking in Hawaii was not like hiking here at all.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun to go to different places. You and I spend most of our time here in the Southwest. Most of the people listening to this podcast spend their time in the Four Corners region, the desert and mountains of the Southwest. The desert's a little different than the mountains, but for the most part, a lot of this is very similar. So when you go to the coast and you're hiking where if you dug a hole in the ground, you'd hit water in 2 feet because you're feet above sea level. It's a whole different environment, and the damn flies.
Well, the way you described Jersey, it made me think a lot of when I've hiked in Arkansas, how the soil is so much softer, and the foliage is like this lush and green and bright, and then there's the bugs. It's awful.
I forgot how bad that was. You could spray yourself with high percentage of DEET, and they will find a way. I am still have scars from the bug bites I got from the flies, especially biting flies. I don't know who we made mad in the evolutionary cycle that they created biting flies, but it's like I feel about spiders. I'm okay with evolution ending if we get rid of them all. And I'll follow that up with, do not write me a letter.
Yeah.
I get it. Hey, Kevin, it has been a great time talking to you about the Mount Whitney hike. I'm so impressed that you got to do it. I'm just happy for you that you got to do it. I can't wait to see what you're going to do next.
Cool. Thank you.
We'll see, what's coming next. On a side note, wildflower season is in full bore, but it seems like we started out with wildflower season being a little behind. And now I'm finding out that someplace like Shrine Pass, one of my favorite places to go up near Vail, usually that's the end of July. I'm hearing that's already at peak or going to be at peak really soon. So some places now are kicking in a little early. So if you're a wildflower person that you want to go out, you don't have to be a photographer like I do and be a nerd and take pictures of everything. But if you want to go see them, if you've got places you know when to visit, you may want to check and see they may be actually a little early this year. The good news is the rain we've been getting has been really helping. I was in Cheyenne Mountain State Park over the weekend doing a trail ambassador hike. It was one of the higher points up there, and it was very green. I just spent the week in San Isabel, and I'll be writing about some of those trails. Very green, and everything looks really good. So I know we're in a drought situation, and the drought situation's not going away. Lake Mead is, shrinking by the day, but at least this rain we've been getting has been really good for the forest and the plants and stuff like that. Doesn't mean the drought's going away. It's not going away. But on the short term, things look really nice. So be aware of that.
Nice.
And with that, Kevin, I think we've taken up a lot of people's time, and I've taken up a lot of yours. So I think unless you got anything else, we'll say goodbye.
Nope, I think I'm good. It was just a lot of fun to talk about Mount Whitney and to hear the contrast of what it's like to hike in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's, other than the occasional dead mobster or something like that, it's fun. I'm kidding. All right, everybody. And with that, we'll say thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast.
We'll talk to you later.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.